So hello, everybody. This is Manuel Castañeda, Director of Community Health at New Brunswick Tomorrow. And as always, I have my partner in crime, Mariam Merced, Director of Community Health at the Robert Wood Johnson Health Promotions Program. I finally got it right again, Mariam. So
Yes,
yes,
second time.
it's finally sticking. It's finally sticking.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us again for our vaccine week part 2. We've been, this is day 4 now, believe it or not. And we've been covering a lot of great topics like on the boosters and vaccines for kids. Today, we're going to cover, new vaccine or rather new COVID treatments. We're going to be discussing breakthrough infections, because a lot of people do have questions about breakthrough infections. And we'll explain that a bit more when we talk to Dr. Hussain. And then we'll talk a bit about, natural immunity versus vaccines, right? A lot of people have asked, if I've had COVID, why do I need to get the vaccine? And so we'll get Dr. Hussain's medical opinion, expert opinion on why that is, right? But I've been mentioning Dr. Hussain without introducing Dr. Hussain. So Mariam, why don't you do us the favor and kick us off with introducing Dr. Hussain?
So Manuel, thank you for that nice introduction. And finally, you got that community health promotions in place. But I want to do honors to our good friend, Dr. Sabiha Hussain, who's here with us and took some time from her busy schedule. She does a lot of things at Robert Wood. She is the Associate Professor of Medicine, Division of Pulmonary and Critical Care for Robert Wood Johnson, for the Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. And thank you, Dr. Hussain, for taking the time. We have worked in many different projects around social determinants of health. I know your heart is in the right place to serving our community. You also have been doing some great work around post-COVID clinics and making sure that our residents have the resources that they need to address the many issues that this pandemic has brought up. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Hussain. And just so that we're clear, can you speak a bit about your connection to New Brunswick? So I know that the medical school is here in New Brunswick, but what else is your connection, would you say, is here, with respect to New Brunswick?
First off, I wanted to thank Manuel and Mariam for the kind words. I just want to say, I've been in New Brunswick for a lot of my life. I went to Rutgers as an undergrad, and I've seen New Brunswick evolve and get to the point where it is right now. And I have a real connection with not only studying here, but also actually have a house here in New Brunswick. And so New Brunswick is very much a part of my home, and I feel honored to be able to take care of the citizens of New Brunswick here at the medical school.
That's great. I couldn't have said it better myself. Awesome. And it's great to have you here as a neighbor, as well as someone serving the community. So thank you again. So let's get into it. Let's get into the topics that we're going to cover today. And so I think the first one that we'll cover is, so we've been hearing that there's now new COVID treatments, for people that are suffering with COVID. I think people can be a bit confused, and I know that it can be a bit, complex because, information is changing day to day. But could you give us at least an update around, the current COVID treatments and the ones that are upcoming, maybe to give people at least a better understanding of what's going on in that area?
Sure. The way that I sort of look at COVID and the disease, and then in terms of treatments for that disease in sort of buckets. So individuals who end up having severe disease and end up going to the hospital, during hospitalization, there are different medications that are available right now. And that has changed from the beginning of the pandemic. So currently, if you're hospitalized for COVID, what the recommendation, and you're requiring oxygen, the recommendations is to give you steroids, which is in the form of Decadron for the most part, and also an antiviral medication. It's called remdesivir. That's usually the routine treatment. Individuals who are, despite giving those medications, they're still not doing well. The other medications that people are giving is called tocilizumab. And that basically is a medications that help to calm your immune system down, because much of what is happening with COVID centers around the inappropriate response that the body has to the virus. So that is what we use when somebody is in the hospital and is sort of acutely ill and not doing well and those kinds of things. The next set of patients that we look at are those patients who get COVID, who are at risk for potentially getting severe COVID, but still are sort of okay. They don't need necessarily hospitalization. Those patients, I would recommend get monoclonal antibody. And so monoclonal antibodies is something that we use in patients so that it gives them the antibodies they need to sort of neutralize that virus so that the virus doesn't get worse and the infection doesn't get worse. And the way you want to access that is to go to your emergency room. Most emergency rooms will have monoclonal antibodies available. If you have issues, please reach out to your primary care provider and they can guide you. Now, there's another subset of patients who are those patients who get the virus, who are sort of the mild to moderately ill, but we don't want them to progress. And for them, there actually had never been anything available until very recently. So there are two medications that are still sort of not completely FDA approved, but are in the pipeline to get FDA approval. One is from Merck and the other is from Pfizer. Both of them work as what we would say anti-proteases. So the virus has a life cycle. So the life cycle of the virus is one where they come into the body of the host. That host, then in order for them to survive, they actually need to get into a cell and take the RNA of that cell and start multiplying. So what these medications do is prevent them from multiplying. And that's what they're called anti-proteases. And those two medications are soon going to be ready for release. They prevent progression of disease. Actually, Pfizer's data is showing that they prevent 90% of patients. Merck's data, initially, they said that it was more around like 50%, but some of that data is always evolving. And so those are really what's out there. But the best, honestly, the best thing for patients is to get vaccinated and wear a mask. I think that more than anything else is probably the best treatment regimen.
Yeah, thank you. You actually semi-answered my next question, right? You know, as we hear, and it's great to hear that, you know, there's development in treatments, but obviously we get a lot of questions from the community saying, hey, we're hearing that you can be treated for this. Why get vaccinated if there's treatments if I get it, right? And so I think you mentioned it, you know, but and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, it's better to get vaccinated and either not get not get COVID or get a lesser sickness due to COVID than having to deal with the treatments, right? I would assume.
Yes.
But yeah,
absolutely. That's 1,000% right. You do not want to get this. Go ahead.
So in terms of access, so the medications, those new medications that are about to go out, that will be something that people can get in their regular physician visit if they are sick and they call their physicians and they could be prescribed that?
Ideally, that would be the source of getting those medications. Right now, it is under what we call emergency use authorization. And so that would require that your physician fill out paperwork for the company then to release that medication. Once the medication becomes FDA approved, then yes, of course, they would be available. And I'm hoping at that time, though, the drug companies and stuff will make it at a price level that is readily accessible. And that is very much in the minds of everyone, that we have to make sure that these medications are at a cost or no cost level so that people have access and people are lobbying to make sure that that is the case.
great, thank you.
Great to hear that. And if there's anything we can do as the community, we should be thinking of making sure that that is available to people without insurance,
Absolutely.
Unemployed. So that is definitely a good point that we need to raise. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So moving along our topic, so we've talked about treatments now. I know a lot of questions that myself and Miriam have gotten, in the community is around breakthrough infections, and people get very upset and frustrated because just so that everybody's on the same page of what a breakthrough infection is we're talking about people who have been vaccinated and still get COVID, right? So that's why they're considering it a breakthrough. And a lot of people who have either heard about this or experienced it themselves get very frustrated, and they start to question, why did I get vaccinated at all if I still got this, and so
And also the non-vaccinated, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then the not vaccinated especially are saying, well, I'm not going to do this. Look, this person did all that and they still got it. And so can I ask you maybe to just, summarize, if you can, breakthrough infections more than maybe I did. And I guess maybe talk to us, why should we get the vaccine if there is breakthrough infections happening?
Sure. Yeah, so, breakthrough infections by definition means that you've gotten both doses of the vaccine, and 14 days post-vaccination, you have developed an infection. So, when you get a vaccine, your body does take time to develop antibodies. And that's the whole idea of vaccination, is that you're basically giving something to someone in a milder form, or in a form that's not going to cause disease, but is going to end up allowing their immune system to build antibodies and neutralizing antibodies. So yes, some patients are getting breakthrough infections, and we do see them here in the hospital. The one thing good is that individuals who've been vaccinated, we know they definitely get less severe disease. They're less likely to be hospitalized, and less likely to end up in my unit, which is the ICU. And even if they do end up in my unit, they're more likely to get off the ventilator and go home. So it is clearly very, very important to get vaccinated. And some of the reasons why that is that, so this virus is it's unique in a way that all viruses sort of mutate. This virus in general, specifically, is mutating more than normal viruses, and it's mutating relatively quickly. And so what's happening is that even if you are vaccinated, sometimes because of the different mutations, you may still get the infection because you don't have all the neutralizing antibodies. But what the vaccine does for you is that it gives you a lot of antibodies that, that are already, that you can fight off the infection with. And so it makes the virus much, much weaker in that sense, right? So if you have like 20 things that you need to aim a gun at and try to kill this virus, by you getting vaccinated, you have 15 of those shots that you can shoot at this virus. And so it makes the virus much, much weaker if you've gotten vaccinated, even if you get a breakthrough infection. So that's why we're recommending that everybody get vaccinated.
And the treatment that you just mentioned can be used with people that already have been vaccinated?
Absolutely. So everybody, anyone who's been vaccinated can still get all of the treatments that are available. So they can get monoclonal antibodies, the remdesivir, all the new oral medications that are going to be making it to the market are all available for anyone who's been vaccinated.
Okay.
And I want to stress, I think, an important point that you make that I think people don't necessarily recognize is that it takes 2 weeks, like you said, right, for the vaccine to kind of give you the immunity that you need. So for some people, they might have unfortunately been infected prior to the vaccines taking place and don't necessarily understand. Well, a lot of people are thinking as soon as you get the shot, you're covered, right? And not understanding that it takes a little time for the body to develop the appropriate immune response to keep you covered. Because I think we've had a lot of those situations too, where people, you know, didn't realize they were either infected or got infected, you know, recently after they had gotten the vaccine.
Exactly. I think that's, you know, that does need to be clarified, that just the day that you get the vaccine doesn't mean that you're protected. It takes some time. And some people, you know, take longer to develop these antibodies. And so that's why we recommend, even if you're vaccinated, to please wear your mask, do social distancing. And the reason why we also keep recommending that you're masking is because of these variants, right? So even though you are vaccinated, as the virus changes, you may get a strain that you're not necessarily immune to the extent that it doesn't cause disease. You may get milder disease, but you know, that's why we're saying that you should still remain masked.
Great, thank you. And then our last topic really is, you know, something that we've been hearing out in the community too, where people who have gotten COVID, you know, they've let us know, well, listen, I already got COVID, so there's no point in me getting the vaccine, because that's it. I've got natural, what they call natural immunity, right? Or people saying that, you know, I've even heard some people say that I'll get COVID so I can get natural immunity. I'd rather do that than actually get the vaccine. Can you talk a bit about natural immunity versus vaccines?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, this natural immunity has been sort of tried, right? So individuals, like different countries had said, let's not get vaccines, let's just let everybody get the virus. And then with that, we will develop our own natural herd immunity. And because of that, it will end up causing less issues. But we know that doesn't work and didn't work in all of those countries. What ended up happening is that you still had variants, people got very sick, and despite that fact, you still had a lot of variants that happened. So the way that immunity works is that there's two different types of immunity. There's active immunity and there's passive immunity. So passive immunity is what I talked about earlier, where you give somebody monoclonal antibodies, and it's very short-lived. You give it to them, they fight that virus, it's done. They will not have long-term immunity from passive immunity. Active immunity is caused by two ways. One, where you get the disease, or two, you get the vaccine. Okay. So the difference between getting the infection, especially in this instance, what is happening is that you are having variants, right? So because you're having variants, the virus that you got infected with, yes, you will have immunity to that specific virus. If you have a variant and you get infected, you will not have antibodies to that variant, okay? And so because of that, you will get sick again. As opposed to someone who's gotten the vaccine is made up of a lot of different variants. Okay, so what will happen is that if you get the vaccine and you have an infection that comes through that was a different variant, you will be protected. As opposed to someone who just got the infection, you will only be protected to that specific virus. You will not be protected to like the Delta virus or the Omicron virus, all the different variants that are happening, because the way that the vaccine is engineered so that it anticipates which variants may happen and it's put into the vaccine. So that's why the vaccine is more protective, right? Because it has a lot more variable variants in it. And so you have a lot more neutralizing antibodies in the vaccine as opposed to just getting the infection. And so that's why it's very important to even if you got infected, you should get the vaccine. And definitely if you've not been infected, you should get the vaccine.
Great, that I think helps clear it up. So yeah, I think that's really it for us today. You know, thank you so much, number one, for your time and for your expertise. in covering this information. You know, as you well know, a lot of people have a lot of questions. And so, you know, our job here, especially during vaccine week, is to try to answer as many of those questions so that people really make informed decisions, right? You know, although we want everybody to be vaccinated, and I can freely say that we're all pro-vaccine, we want people to at least have the correct information as they're making their decisions to vaccinate themselves and their families. So I thank you for showing up. Miriam, we have now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussain.
No
You know, this information needs to be constantly updated for our community, and many of them don't have the resources in their hands to get the information. So we want to make sure that people that they know, that they trust, you know, is giving this information. That's why we're doing this second vaccine week with updated information. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Yes,
No
absolutely.
problem.
And
No
Mariam,
problem.
to your point.
Anytime.
Thank you. Mariam, to your point, you know, through Su Salud and through Live Well, we're also putting out that information as we get it. So people, you know, continue to go to Live Well, go to Su Salud, you know, our Facebook pages, and as well as our website. You know, Live Well has a website. We have everything that we get from you guys as experts. We make sure that that's there and available for people. Mariam, we've made it through day 4, 1 day left. 1 day left. And then so tomorrow we hope that you continue joining us, as tomorrow we're going to be addressing COVID myths and disinformation, right? Because there's still a lot of, unfortunately, disinformation out there, wrong information, things that are just completely not true. And we want to make sure that we address that. And at the same time, we'll be giving you information to make sure that you know where and how you can get your vaccine when you're ready. So again, Dr. Hussain, thank you very much. Mariam, as always, thank you very much, and a pleasure working with you. And we'll see everybody tomorrow evening. Thank you.